All right. You guys ready to go?
Yep.
Yep.
Everybody got it. Don't get kicked out of the stream. All righty. Alrighty, so we are back with episode number 3 of Around the Board this year. We are excited to have everybody here. We have a big script today. Lots of cool things to talk about. We had week 1 finished of NFL, week 2 of college football, and that MLB playoff race is beginning to take picture. So today it is me, Alex, Adam, and Dallas. So we are going to go over everything, talk about it a little bit. And to start out, we had a riveting Thursday night football matchup last night in which the Kansas City Chiefs won 27-24 against the Chargers. We had Patrick Mahomes, who went 24 for 35 on his completions with 235 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Justin Herbert, even though injured, threw for 334 yards with 33 of 48 completions and 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. What are some of the big takeaways that you guys had for this game last night?
Adam, you want to take this? You want to go?
Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and start first. I guess my biggest takeaway was that I think we were underestimating the Chiefs. I think we've been underestimating them. Patrick Mahomes is still, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the NFL. And this team has resilience. I mean, the Chargers are no easy team to beat. They will fight you. They will score points. They're a high-scoring team. Got a lot of good players. And Kansas City weathered the storm, and they were able to just take hits and hit back over and over and over again. And even though, yes, they've lost Tyreek Hill, who's one of my favorite wide receivers, it seems like they've replaced well with Juju. It's as good of a replacement as you could hope for Kansas City. And even though Travis Kelce was, not himself last night, 5 for 7, maybe you could target him a bit more, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire has surprised me. Really, really good start to the season. First 2 games, he's played phenomenal. And that's a part of the Kansas City Chiefs offense that, running the ball hasn't really been their strong suit. It's always been their passing game. So them adding something new, it puts a whole level of danger, and they look good. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs look good offensively, and even defensively, they look decent. They look solid enough. So I think we've underestimated them. They if they keep going, they might win this division.
I would like to say Clyde Edwards-Helaire is currently sitting on 15 rushing attempts for 116 yards, but it's also his use in the passing. He's had 7 receptions for 76 yards and 2 touchdowns. So total right now, he has 4 NFL touchdowns, 2 receiving, 2 rushing, a lot more than he had last year. Dallas, would you like to talk about your big takeaway from the game?
My big takeaway is the Chargers defense playing that too high again, making Patrick Mahomes dink and dunk, really not allowing the Chiefs offense to really move down the field, which I think the other teams can take away from this. You don't have the Tyreek Hills on the Kansas City Chiefs anymore to burn you over the top. It's really only Mecole Hardman to worry about. Valdez-Scantling, here and there, he can burn you over the top, but not too much, honestly. I think if teams repeat that formula the Chargers had last night, it's going to keep a lot of teams in close games with the Chiefs. But the Chiefs will pull through most of those games, I feel like, just because Andy Reid and his scheme. I really like what the Chiefs did last night, spraying the ball around and getting guys involved that you really don't know. Justin Watson schooled J.C. Jackson last night on that one route for the touchdown. You never heard of that guy. They're going to use guys that you haven't really heard of and move the ball around a lot. Jerick McKinnon, I thought, played a very good game last night. And other than that big run by Clyde, I thought McKinnon outplayed Clyde last night. I like the use of the 3 running backs the Chiefs had. And that's about all for the Chiefs. The Chargers, I just felt like everything was a little sloppy for them. Not really too many clean plays. As me and Alex were watching this, getting behind the sticks, no first down and 10 first downs. Always first down, they either throw an incompletion, get 5 yards, run on second down, get in a third down situation. They had a lot of third downs last night. I think if they can clean that up, and I think up the tempo a little bit more. When they up the tempo, I think they played really well.
I do agree. So for myself, I think to stick on some of those key points of the game, I did think the Chiefs had a very good game, as we touched on. Great team, great game. Unfortunately, I will say that I do think the Chiefs should have lost, and people aren't going to like what I'm going to say about it. There's 3 points in the game where interceptions are made. 2 of them are bailed out on a penalty, and 1 is called incomplete. In my opinion, I did not think the incompletion on the Asante Samuel Jr. pick, I don't think it was incomplete. I think that was a pick. Patrick Mahomes came off to the sideline, was clearly visibly mad about it. So I believe, I think it was a pick. We can argue about it. We can say what we want to say. It was a pick by him, no matter what happened. I really do think it was a better game. For the Chargers, I liked, the intermediate reads, the deep balls, they really opened up the field a little bit more. The use of Austin Eckler was huge in this game. I would just, like how Dallas said, like to see them get above the 3-yard runs and 3-yard routes on first down. I'd like to see them go for explosives on first down, throw 8-yard hitches, or throw 9-yard curls, throw stuff that's going to force defenses to sit off, because when it came into the second half, you saw that Kansas City went into heavy box, which just means they're lining up 7 guys inside the tackle box on every play. It allowed them to get a lot more pressure on Herbert, which was very evident with his rib injury. It looks like he has suffered after the game. He took some hits, but stayed in there, was a true champ, threw the ball around. Had a great game. I also like to sit on the Kansas City defense. I really did not think that defense was very good last year. Very clear moments where, they just had lapses and lost games. I'd like going back to that week 3 matchup, I believe it was last year, where the Chargers beat the Chiefs at home. Beat the Chiefs at their home in Arrowhead. Got a quick win. Think it was a bad defense, bad team at that time. But, that defense has made those steps to improve. I would still like to see them, secure a corner number 1, because their corners got absolutely cooked on every play. Rashad Fenton and L'Jarius Sneed could not handle anybody. Trent McDuffie's injury, I think, hurt. But, you do have a step up. You do get that 99-yard pick 6 on the goal line. But, the game for me, it was sloppy on both ends. I would really like to see the Chargers, completely rework the scheme next week. I know they will not. They're going to live in this offense. It's either live or die in that offense. And, it wasn't a bad game. I think at the end of the day, it should have maybe gone to overtime, maybe should have been a Chargers win in regular time, but, good game overall. Also, I do have a point to turn off of here and kind of make the bank back into our AFC West conversation. Is this going to impact the AFC West down the line? Because with this win, if the Chargers and the Chiefs have to have the same record, and the Chargers and the Chiefs are the separation factor is that the Chargers lost this game and then lost another game later in the season to the Chiefs. Now the Chiefs have retained the number 1 in the AFC West, while the Chargers are now fighting for a wild card spot.
I mean,
All right.
If I was going to, if this game could have ultimately been the decider, I'm not sure. I think that it's a little too early to call that how important this was. I think we'll figure out in a couple weeks how important this game was. But I mean, I know we were saying, stuff about the interceptions and stuff and the things that got ruled out, but you can only be what's in front of you. Things happen. Sometimes bad decisions are made. I don't think this will impact the Chargers at all. I think they're just gonna, like you said, they're gonna keep going with this offense. They're just gonna keep going with it. They're not gonna change. But the Chiefs, the defense really impressed me. I think the defense is. I think they could weather the storm with this division. I mean, they weathered the storm good enough to win against the Chargers. So if they can do that, I think that this defense will be strong enough to hold on, unless there's, of course, an injury crisis. But I think this was a big game, obviously, but I don't think it'll be as impactful. I think we'll figure out if it really was impactful or not later.
I agree. I'm just saying, it's something to watch out for now. Now that we've gone out and we've seen what's truly happened, there might be these moments where it kind of changes out how the season's outlined later on. So with that, we are now going to split into week 1 games. I'm just going to go through a quick list, give everybody some scores. And then if anybody has something to say about the game, chime in. Team we just talked about, the Chargers got a win 24-19 against the Raiders. That was a great game. The Bengals took an unfortunate loss in overtime to the Steelers 23-20. The Buccaneers blew out the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football with a 19-3 single-handed win. The Chiefs again blew out the Cardinals 44-21 in a game that did not look close from kickoff. The Giants grabbed a great win on a 2-point conversion with Saquon Barkley to beat the Titans 21-20. Indy and Houston had our first tie of the season, 20-20 in overtime. And then Minnesota beat the reigning NFL MVP very single-handedly, 23-7. Who wants to talk about in particular game? I know the Colts was a big game to talk about. Personally, for me, I'm going to talk about Minnesota and Green Bay. But Adam, I guess you want to start us out with that Colts game.
I guess I have to, don't I? This was frustrating. As a Colts fan, this is very frustrating to watch. I mean, the two biggest play, the biggest play for the Texans was a Colts play. Alec Pierce dropping the touchdown in the end zone. That changed the game. It gave Houston a lifeline, and they took it. They built up a lead, and we had to fight back. And we're really missing Darius Leonard, or I guess Shaquille Leonard now, since he changed his name. But we were really, really missing him. The defense looked lost at some points. They looked like they were confused a couple times. And I mean, they were really good at getting to them, but the receivers were just getting so open at some points, especially in the middle of the game. And they did graft down in the fourth quarter. And even though Rodrigo Blankenship was doing his best to give the Titans as good a field position as they possibly could have, the defense still held him back. And we probably should have won this game. Did we deserve to? No, in my opinion. I think we just came back at the end because Houston was tired or complacent or something like that. It was just, and on the basis of Rodrigo, I'm happy they did it. I'm happy that he's gone. No hate towards him. Wish him the best of luck in the future. But I mean, you got to uphold some standards. Kickers are not the hardest thing to replace in the league. I like him. I think the players on the team like him, but you can't put 2 kickoffs out of bounds and back-to-back times. I mean, I can't remember the last time I saw that. I don't know if either of you remember the last time you saw it.
It's usually college games where you see a lot of it. So, you'd think this would be something that would have been worked out by the time he's got to the NFL, but, happens.
And obviously the missed field goal in overtime was a direct result from doing that back-to-back. I think his head was gone at that point. He was just completely flustered. And I knew he was going to miss that field goal in overtime. I knew it because it had been leading up to that. And, I've talked to a lot of Colts fans. They're saying that was the reason we lost, was him. And I thought it was kind of harsh to put the blame on him. My biggest issue for the Colts, we looked rusty. Man, we looked rusty. Matt Ryan was solid. I think he played really well in the pocket. The receivers, they weren't really helping him out much, except for Michael Pittman. Out of the receivers, Michael Pittman can hold his head up high and say that he did his best. But Paris Campbell, anonymous, couldn't get open, easily defended on everything he tried. Every run that he made, every play, he was just covered every single time. Alec Pierce, rough first game of his career. I'm not going to put too much on it. Hopefully he'll be back next week, and hopefully he'll, Reggie Wayne can put some confidence back in him. And Ashton Doolin was okay, I guess. I don't think he should be the number 2. If Ashton Doolin's your number 2 receiver, you're a little down there in talent. Even though I like him, you're a little slow on talent. The defense, I thought Kwity Paye was immense, and he was bullying the Texans, and I think he's going to demand a lot more respect in this league. And I really hope that he would take another step forward. I saw some analysis of his game, and the Texans really changed because they realized how tough it was to keep that guy away from him. He was really good, and I hope he can take another step forward. But it's on the Jacksonville next week. We haven't won there in 8 years. I think it's been since 2014 was the last time we beat them in Jacksonville. So hopefully, technically we can stop another record from going on. We did it last week, kind of. So yeah, I think that we just have to move on. And Derry and when Leonard comes back, our leader, basically the team leader of that whole defense, comes back. Hopefully, I think he will be back. We might lose Buckner. He didn't practice today. I believe
he's been limited the entire week. So
yeah, it's not looking good there. And obviously he's our best on the line. So it's looking a little, I don't know how next week is going to be, but this game was just disappointing because we could have won. It could have been a blowout for them. It could have been a blowout for us. It was just really, it was it was a speed strip sack. The reason that we came back and got a tie was EJ Speed making a play, and the Texans just letting him free for some reason. I don't even know what that was, but yeah, it's rough week. Still top AFC though. AFC South still top.
All righty. So Dallas, you want to talk about your game? I feel like we all know where this one's going to go to.
Yeah. I'll head into the Bengals Steelers game here. Obviously Steelers taking an overtime victory in the last seconds of OT. It was very close to another 2020 tie, just like the Colts. Key takeaways from this game for me. I respect everybody in the division. Obviously I'm a Bengals fan, but I respect the other teams in the division. The Steelers D-line caused some problems. TJ Watt caused big problems in that game. Hopefully he's back in 6 weeks. He's a very fun player to watch. I thought Highsmith played well for them as well. The corners are a little bit iffy. I think Sutton actually played a very good game. Some of the picks by Burrow I'll get into in a second, but I think the Steelers played very well on the defensive side of the football. TJ Watt being out is going to hurt him. Hopefully he will be back, like I said. I think that defensive line is still good enough to get some pressure. And now for the offensive side for the Steelers, I don't believe in Trubisky. I'm sorry. I'm not a believer in Mitchell Trubisky. I think he will start a few weeks. I think Kenny Pickett will come in maybe week 7, week 8. I just don't think Trubisky can get the ball down the field enough, in my opinion, to get it done. Steelers don't really have that downfield threat, really. They didn't use Claypool as a downfield threat at all. Most of the receivers were underneath stuff. They didn't use Pickens at all, which I was very surprised about. Najee had a tough game, but I'll give a little bit of credit to my Bengals defensive side of football. I think we have a top 10, if not top 5 unit in the league. That continuity I talked about on last week's show, I think showed very well. I think the defense played very well. Didn't get too much pressure. I feel like we could have got more, but the secondary held up very nice. Linebackers, Logan Wilson, Davis Gaither, all those guys, Jermaine Pratt played very well, gain tackling to the ball, held Najee 10 carries for 23 yards. Very good run defense there. I got to give some credit to DJ Reader on the defensive line. That man is a beast. Just shedding off of two guys, tackling Najee for loss. He made unbelievable plays, looking like playoffs last year. So now I'll get into my complaints. Obviously, offensive side of the football. 5 turnovers from Joe Burrow. So not the best showing as well. I'll give him a little slack. It's first, he didn't play in the preseason. Coming off the appendix surgery, I think that played a little bit of a factor, but he did look like him say he was moving around pretty decently. So I won't blame it on that too much. I think he just wasn't making reads at the start of the game. That first pick six with Mika, I mean, he had 5 guys on the route and 4 guys were open, and he throws it into double coverage. So that'll take some time to get back into progressing through the reads. Like the offensive line, we revamped the O-line. I think they need a few weeks to get some continuity together as well. They have to show up against the Cowboys. Micah Parsons is going to cause havoc out there. So we have to somehow slow down Micah Parsons this week. I thought Joe Mixon looked very good. Obviously, Jamar Chase, again, to my complaint, he scored a touchdown with 1:30 left. That was called down at the 1. I don't know why Zach Taylor didn't throw the challenge flag there. If it was that close, you got to throw the challenge flag there or have them review it, because they didn't review it at all, which ended up costing us that touchdown because we had 4 plays at the 1 and we couldn't punch it in there. T. Higgins going out early caused a little bit of problems. They doubled up on Boyd, really. I mean, Chase got open a lot, but when you're throwing the ball at Mike Thomas a lot, he had about 6-7 targets. He's not going to come down with a lot there. Other than that, really, man, the turnovers were just key, and I think the league should watch out. If we limit those turnovers, Joe Burrow still threw 350. If he doesn't throw 5 turnovers, he's throwing almost 500 yards. I understand we had an overtime there as well, but he didn't throw that many yards in OT. We signed a long snapper this week, which is very much needed since our long snapper got hurt last week. I think that was the key of the game. McPherson got blocked on the 1, missed the 1 in OT. It was a snap. It was a snap. It was a bad snap. And if they snap it correctly, the Bengals come out of there with a W. And a lot to be disappointed about, but encouraging that we honestly should have won the game, honestly.
Yeah, I think, looking at the game analytically, Joe Burrow looked really good. I felt like, some of those interceptions are unlucky interceptions. The one that's batted up at the line and caught, that's always a tough one. Looking at his passer chart on NFL Next Gen Stats, 2 of the throws are very downfield, middle of the field, blatant throws in between the hashes. Some of them were really bad, but I also think some of them, were either poorly timed routes or, really good coverage, really good decoy coverage, putting guys in positions where, it looks like they're not going to come into that coverage, and then they drop down and intercepted it. I think it's a tough game. That Steelers defense is really good, has been very good over time, and continuity is a big thing for them. They've kept a lot of these guys in the building. They've played together. They're not afraid to get after the ball. So, it's a good team. At the end of the week, I think that game, once again, should have ended in a tie. I think it was just a tough game, some tough breaks, but I'm not really concerned if I'm a Bengals fan. If I'm a Bengals fan looking outwards, I'm, saying, oh, well, bad game. We're going to retain all our guys. We had a few injuries, a few guys banged up. On the Steelers note of it, I'm a little worried. We're not looking the healthiest. We've lost what I would believe is the focal point of the entire defense in TJ Watt. He is that guy who is all over the field, making plays, getting after it. Losing him for 6 weeks, it's tough. They have a very crucial stretch where they do play the Bills and Buccaneers back to back. So I think, if they could somehow, get him healthy, maybe get him back for a limited amount of snaps in one of those games, it'd be much appreciated. But, until then, take it easy, get him healthy. And, hopefully that offense can carry itself. Like Dallas said, I thought Mitchell Trubisky truthfully played a pretty good game. He looked like that game manager We all remember from Chicago, not the guy who's going to, beat you down the field, not going to throw insane, crazy passes. He's just going to sit in, throw those little dink and dunk passes, didn't throw a lot over the middle of the field, but, had a pretty solid game and, contributed to the offense. So do we have any more points about that game, gentlemen?
I think we've covered it.
All righty. Well, so for my game, it was an interesting one. We saw the Green Bay Packers, who have been NFC favorites for years and years from the North, take a week 1 loss to the Minnesota Vikings. In the same way that I talked about, implications farther down the road, I think this one is a huge one. I think it is a very screaming, I need help for Aaron Rodgers kind of game. The running back situation, which we talked about throughout the season, has gotten better. We have AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones, who have the ability to, be helpful, run, catch out of the backfield. Great for them. But the wide receiver position is still looking very, very bleak. I'm going to name the guys who lined up in the wide receiver position this week. We have Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson, who are both first-year rookies who had never played in an NFL game. Juwan Winfrey, who was elevated from the practice squad, and 2 veterans in Randall Cobb and Sammy Watkins. It just doesn't look like it's going to be a very good wide receiving core from now until I would say week 6. I think this team's really going to have to hunker in and get behind them run. Their offensive line's pretty banged up still. Bakhtiari's still not returned from his injury. So, you really have to hope that Aaron Rodgers and this wide receiving core can figure it out immediately. But then I also have to give props to the Minnesota Vikings, who came out with a just great game. Kevin O'Connell, props, man. I mean, you looked really good from minute 1 until the last minute of the game. Great coverage. Played very good, had a very good defense. I liked how it looked. I know the people are always talking about how that Mike Zimmer defense is just such a staple. They've built off it and added some new concepts to it. They looked very good. I felt like stunned Aaron Rodgers, just didn't give up a lot, some errant drops, I feel like maybe helped them out a little bit. But then on the offensive side for Minnesota, it just looked really good. We always talk about Austin has the Kirk Cousins is just a very, very good game manager, is a top 12 quarterback always, just because the fact, he's not going to make those errant throws. He's going to sit in, look for the early progression, hit his man. But, Justin Jefferson's looking like a really good wide receiver 1. I will put a little bit on that Packers defense. LaFleur, maybe should have said we're going to play man to man a little bit more. Playing some soft zone stuff, did not help them when you have one of the most dynamic wide receivers lining up against you week 1. And it really showed. Justin Jefferson had 2 touchdowns on only 9 receptions in this game. So there's got to be something that's got to change for the Packers. It's got to change on offense, but it's also got to change on defense. I think, they really need to, come into this next week and, just hit the chalkboard and say, wow, that game sucked. And, we're going to take a look at that, and we're going to step back and, hopefully, I'm looking to see who the Packers play this week. The Packers play the Bears, hopefully we can get it done. I mean, if I'm worried about a game, this is probably the game I'm worried about. This is going to have to be an Aaron Rodgers bounce back game. This team's just going to have to look better. Bears got a really good, gritty week 1 win against the 49ers, in which they scored all 19 points in the 4th quarter. So, you just can't have those lapses late in the game. But overall, I will say Rishi's take last week about Minnesota being number 1 in the NFC, not looking too far off. I do think defensively for them, they're going to have to they're going to have to hope for a healthy season. I think if they lose a few defensive pieces, I get a little worried. And, if Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers like he is every year, there's always a great chance that they're going to come in and win a lot of games, even if they don't have the skill positions necessary to win those games. But, great game. We recapped week 1. who is your favorite team coming out of week one, guys? Because I think everybody has that one team. We're all just like, wow, they just looked great. I'm excited to see them play in week 2 and week 3 and blah, blah, blah. And just keep going down the line. Who's that team that, we're all really excited about?
Actually, for me, I'm going to continue on your point. My team's the Vikings. I was really impressed with the Vikings. I did not expect them to run away against the Green Bay Packers. The only thing I am worried about with the Vikings is that they might be a little bit of a one-man team. And that one man is Justin Jefferson. I'm a little bit worried when it comes to future success, especially playoff success, that they might be a one-man team. But I mean, they're my favorite team to watch. I think Kirk Cousins, always a solid quarterback, didn't do anything wrong. Dalvin Cook looked pretty solid, 20 carries for 90 yards. Even Alexander Madison, 8 carries for 36. They both look pretty solid. Justin Jefferson, of course, 184 yards. That's just ridiculous. But the reason why I say they might be a one-man team is Adam Thielen was second with 36. So maybe somebody else can step up. I mean, Adam Thielen, of course, is for a while has been a very, very good receiver in the league. So you can never really count him out. But I mean, they were just fun to watch. I liked watching him, on the defense, 4 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. They looked good and they looked fun. I'm excited to see them play more. I want to see what this team can do.
Yeah, definitely a great team to watch. They have a great week 2 matchup. Kind of spinning off your point, my team is actually the team they are playing in week 2. It is those Philadelphia Eagles, baby. They just looked just so great. I know people say, the Detroit Lions, scored 35 points on you. It's a new defense, remember, ladies and gentlemen. They're not a very experienced team, I would say. There's experience in positions. But a great game overall. I think the big X factor coming into this game is number 1, A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown finished the game with an average depth of target of 7.2 yards. He broke off 155 yards on only 10 receptions, had a huge 40-yard reception in the game. I think this game is, going to have to be kind of a game plan setter for the Vikings. You're going to have to realize, you're going to have to put a safety in a corner on A.J. Brown at all times of the game because, the Vikings really got penalized when they went into single man zone. Jeff Okudah couldn't keep up with first of all, the speed of A.J. Brown, as well as the catch radius. It's huge. Devontae Smith only had 2 targets in the entire game after coming off a 996-yard receiving rookie season. Huge for him. I really looked this week to see if they add him into the scheme a little bit more. I really didn't like the fact that he missed out on so much. But then also Zach Pascal, a great addition from the Colts. He only had 1 reception for 7 yards, but, he's kind of one of those guys that's just going to eat some space, take a corner up. And Dallas Goedert, he's been a great piece for this team for so long. He had 60 yards on 3 receptions. So, it's a great team looking at it on paper. But, I still think there's some very glaring mistakes on the defensive side. We haven't really seen what that second tier, so their linebacking core can do yet. TJ Edwards probably had a rougher game. Kaiser White and Nakobe Dean played very limited snaps. I thought Kaiser White looked really good, though. And in the secondary, it was a lot of the same. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's only been with the team for just a few weeks. So, it's really hard to, look at this game and call it a good sample size for that defense. They're still learning. Marlon Tuipulotu, their 4th-string defensive tackle, had a great game. Got after the run. But I'm interested to see. I think this Eagles team, when they live in 5-man fronts, which is 5 down defensive linemen and edges, they're really good at stopping the run, and they proved it. When they're in their 4-man base sets of just 4 down defensive linemen, or so 2 D tackles and 2 edges. They weren't as good against the run, gave up a few explosive runs to DeAndre Swift and Jamal Adams. So, I really look for them to, to step up, shut Dalvin Cook down, but then also having the ability this week to cover big targets. You have Darius Slay, and you have James Bradbury, who caught a pick six, as well as Avonte Maddox. You can line up with every wide receiver. You put Avonte Maddox on a KJ Osborne. You put James Bradbury on Adam Thielen, and then you put a Darius Slay on a Justin Jefferson, and you've matched everybody up. And now your safeties of Marcus Epps and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's jobs are just to, protect from anything being beat. So, I think it's going to be an interesting game. In all reality, I think the Eagles will win. I think the Eagles are just going to come out with a better defensive game plan to cover targets, while the Vikings might struggle to cover some targets. I think we didn't see a lot of people in this team. And also, I think the interesting part is the running back room the Eagles have. For me, that's a big factor. They've come at it with this idea of why just have one good running back, when we can have three guys who are pretty decent. So, you're going to have to take on the three-pronged running back room of Miles Sanders, who had 52% of snaps last week, Kenneth Gainwell, who had about 30, and then Boston Scott, who had 18. So, you're not going to see the same running back lined up in the backfield. And I thought Jalen Hurts looked to make really good improvements. I really do want him to throw the ball over the middle of the field. On his passer chart on Next Gen Stats, did not see one single attempted throw over the middle of the field. So, maybe include some of that this week, but, it's going to be a good game. But, the Eagles, for me, I talked about it in week one or before week one, they're a team that looks like they're really ready to threaten the NFC.
I'll come back with that, and I was going to say the Eagles as well look very impressive. I just really like that game in general. The Lions impressed me a lot, actually. I didn't think the Eagles defense would struggle that much. Maybe it was probably continuity issues there, but I thought the Lions looked very decent on the offensive side of the ball. Now their defense is a little hurting, but I'm interested to see what the Lions can do this year. I think they can win some games. I think they can spoil some playoff pitchers. Who knows? But back to the Eagles real quick. I just want to point out what Alex just said. The run game is they're going to be the number one rushing offense in the league. I feel like, again, this year, Jalen Hurts, pretty sure he had 17 carries for 90 yards and touchdown. All those guys, every single one scored a touchdown. They rushed the ball. All four of them, Jalen Hurts and those three running backs, all scored touchdowns rushing. And back to Alex's point of Jalen Hurts not throwing over the middle, I think that's scheme. Jalen Hurts is better on the move. He's better throwing outside the numbers on the move. I think the scheme works very well. Now, he does need to throw some over the middle so defense doesn't shade to the outside. This is what I think that defense need to do to stop them right now. But the run game is very good and hard to stop with that great O-line. But since Alex picked the Eagles, I'm going to go back to the Chiefs. We're going back to week one, but I'll add in last night as well, the Chiefs. I think new offense, not bombing it to Tyreek Hill a lot, is going to improve Patrick Mahomes even more. I think his ability to make reads. I know he had a couple bad throws last night, but his ability to make reads and take the 5 yards, take the 10 yards, the run game's improving with the Chiefs. I think the defense will be an underrated unit. I think Chris Jones, he's just a handful in there. I really like what their linebackers did last night with the Chargers. Sniffed out screens, sniffed out everything. Nick Bolton, Willie Gay played very good games last night. If those linebackers can stop the run and everything, it'll help out the secondary a lot. Justin Reed coming over for Tyrann Mathieu played very well last night, I think. And if Finn can keep playing well and the 99-yard pick six by Watson, if those seventh-round players, undrafted players, can step in and just play decent, I think the Chiefs are going to be very hard to stop.
I agree. So I kind of, wanted to touch on a few games this week. We talked about some of them. There's Eagles Vikings Monday Night Football, as well as it's a doubleheader on Monday Night Football. Bills and Titans. I think that game's going to be very interesting. I think that's one of these. I hate putting it as like a test point, but I really think this is going to be the test point for the Titans. You're looking at this team saying, so you competed last year for the AFC. Are you going to compete again? And, they're going to have their hands full. But also, there's a couple other games. It's a lot of AFC matchups this week. I will say the NFC is a little more depleted. Probably not as good a lined up games. But Ravens play the Dolphins, two teams who got wins in week 1. Interested to see how that game lines up, as well as the Colts, head to Jacksonville. Last year, Jacksonville spoiled their season on the last week. So, are the Colts going to come back in the vengeance tour, or, are the Colts going to get, a little scared by Jacksonville? I think it's going to be a very interesting set of games. I felt like we've kind of gone a little long on NFL. So, I thought we'd just speed run through those and return to another set of football, college football. Just a great week last week. And like, we're going to cover the slates almost. The big games, my Kentucky Wildcats had to throw them in there first, getting a nice little win at Florida, knocking them all the way up to number 9 on the AP poll in a 26-16 win. Appalachian State, baby, making a little name for themselves after last week, getting a nice dub against Texas A&M 17-14. Dallas may have won his hot take on that one. A really close game in Texas, a game none of us expected to be very close after Quinn Ewers' injury. Alabama only scraping out a 1-point win on a late game field goal against Texas. Hate saying it, but man, Texas looked good. Even when Quinn Ewers wasn't in, Texas looked good. They limited Alabama in a lot of aspects, but great game. And then unfortunately, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish took another loss in week 2. This one to Marshall in an absolute stunner. I don't think any of us on this board would have looked at that game and said, "Oh boy, Marshall, baby, they're going to get after it. They're just gritty." It happens. But we've gone over those. I think maybe it's now time to touch on teams that we're really, really high on going into week 3. So if none of you want to start it out, I'm going to start it out probably.
You know what? I'm going to go start it out here. You know what? I'm going to go with it. The Indiana Hoosiers, IU, baby. IU's going all the way this year. I mean, I like IU. I'm not the hugest fan of college football, but I've always, been close to IU on the IU side. Two wins start the season. Expected start. Last game, a lot of points in the second half. All of the points in the second half. Big, like down 10-0 in the halftime. They come out looking like a different beast. And I think that's important. I think that's a good sign. And there's a player every single week, both weeks. There's one guy who comes up big. Sean Shivers, 155 yards on 20 carries. And Cam Camper last week with the massive game. So if we keep having random guys, one guy a week being massive and you can't predict it and you become unpredictable, you can go far. So I'm going with IU.
I will say IU's matchup is interesting. We do have a great program who has been consistently producing great quarterbacks in the last 2 drafts, Mike White and Bailey Zappi, both coming from those WKU Hilltoppers. But there's also a very interesting, I'd say, these next 4 games, really prove what IU is. You have Western Kentucky, then you followed it up with a very perennial powerhouse in the possible with a move coming to the Big 12 in the next few years. Cincinnati, I think they lost a tough game against Arkansas, but I'm looking for them to rebound. And then Nebraska, a team that I can't say looks very good with the firing of Scott Frost, but then they take on Michigan. Michigan's a big game. Michigan's a good team, top 4 right now. I would like to see IU, battle their way through that game. IU, I'll give it to the Hoosiers. Haven't been a football team for a couple years, but they're really looking like they're maybe making some inroad and strides, like you said. The unpredictability of who's going to have a good game. It can benefit, but I also think you really do want to see this IU team kind of step out and stand out in week 3, against the Hilltoppers to really push them into this tough Big Ten schedule. All righty, Dallas, you want me to go or would you like to go?
I mean, I'm pretty sure my team's same as yours. I'm gonna add another team into it. Obviously, we sat down, we watched the whole Kentucky-Florida game. I really like what Kentucky did. I'll let you talk about Kentucky. So I'm gonna move over to another team. I'm interested to see. None of the games really stick out to me this week. I mean, there could be an upset. You never know in college football. But I'm excited for the Big 12 play, and I'm excited about Oklahoma here. So Oklahoma, tough start last week against Kent State. Really didn't come out to play, and the second half they came out and showed what they can do. They're on the road, and then Nebraska, Big Ten team this week. I think they should handle Nebraska pretty well, honestly. But I'm excited when they play the Texas, the Oklahoma State, the Baylors. When they get to that part of the schedule, we'll really be tested and see what Gabriel can do at quarterback. I really like what they have at the running back in Gray and Marvin Mims, a receiver. Historically, Oklahoma defenses have been bad. We've all talked about Big 12 being no defense. I think the defense is just a little bit improved, and we'll
all
see.
Gas, no brakes, baby. All gas, no brakes.
If you can make a few stops in the Big 12, that can go a long way for your offense, because your offense should not be stopped in the Big 12. I think Oklahoma historically has good offense. Even with Lincoln Riley moving over, I think their offense is still very good. So I'm excited and interested to see when we get into Big 12 play what Oklahoma has.
All righty. Well, you guys, as if anybody has been watching the show for quite a long time, you know my allegiance to Kentucky sports runs deep. I like to say that I bleed blue, even though I go to an IU school. It's a family lineage thing. You're just born to be a blue. I mean, they had a great win last week. As Dallas said, we sat down, watched the entire game. My emotions almost got the best of me at moments. I think it was a tough game from kickoff. It was a game that I was nervous about. I made it very clear to Dallas. Kentucky's a good team. We've been a very good, middle of the road team for the past few years. And, I've been waiting for that, step to the next level, this is the year for me that I feel like we can do it, just a great game. Will Levis looked very good the entire game, made very tough throws, even with a very, very, very good Florida front line or good defensive line, as well as linebackers. They have some very good top 5 pass rushers, top 5 run stoppers. And, we got it done with, only 2 active running backs. I think that was a key, Cavassier, Smoke, and I'm actually forgetting the other running back's name, McConnell maybe, really got in between the trenches, were able to run. But also that Kentucky team I felt like unlocked, that passing that we haven't seen. We had key targets, Wan'Dale Robinson, who ended up being a New York Giant now, was a big loss from last year, but replacement with a true freshman in Dane Key and Tavion Robinson, the senior grad transfer from Virginia. It's been crucial. I think it's a really good team. And I'm really excited to see what they do. I will say we do have 2 kind of Mickey Mouse matchups the next 2 weeks in Youngstown State and Northern Illinois. I'm not going to take those for granted. Those could be tough teams. We did not have a great start to the season against Miami of Ohio, struggled in the first half, but, picked it up in the second. And I'm looking for them to roll it in. And then, that Saturday, October 1st, I'm looking forward to seeing, a real true start to SEC play. You got to play Ole Miss, South Carolina, Tennessee. And, the biggest game I'm circling for this year is that Georgia game on Saturday, November 19th, a team that I believe will truly stay at the number 1 position so long as Austin Anderson's South Carolina Gamecocks don't come out and, shock the world this week. I just look for Kentucky to, make this eventual step to, being a very good SEC East team and maybe being 2. I would love to say that, I see both basketball and football making a SEC championship this year, but, you got to be realistic, you got to play by the rules. But, a really good team. I hope they make a really good bowl game. But, I'm rooting for them every week. I'm not going to be able to watch every game, but, great games. And I'm just excited to see what these Wildcats can do. All righty. Well, we've got through that. Now on to the MLB playoff picture. I know we've talked a lot about football the first 3 episodes. You know, it's just come back. We're all excited to see it. A very, very interesting MLB wild playoff picture is still building. You know, the Dodgers are the only team currently to clinch a division with some huge battles going on right now. The AL Central battle is one of the biggest ones, I would say. People have not noticed. You know, the AL Central is currently 3 games from, the White Sox are 3 games out from Cleveland. The NL East battle, one of the tightest battles, with Atlanta a game out from the Mets, who just got a win last night. The AL East we thought was completely wrapped up, but the Blue Jays are making some strides here with only being 6 games out from the Yankees, who have been a team that looked on fire in the first half and have maybe died out a little bit. But the wild card battle right now in the AL, Seattle, Toronto, Tampa, Baltimore, the White Sox, and Minnesota the Baltimore White Sox and Minnesota are 4.5, 6.5, and 7.5 out. So, you know, maybe a little bit of a longer shot, but you never know. The madness ensues in MLB. In the NL wildcard race, currently, the teams that are looking to make the wild card are Atlanta, Philly, San Diego, and Milwaukee. Milwaukee is a game and a half out. So that is interesting. You know, you never know what's going to happen with those teams. But, you know, we're going to talk about, I think for us, you know, the biggest thing is who are these teams that we like from now until later on, once we get into the postseason, you know, who are those teams we're thinking are going to make those great strides to improve? Dallas, would you like to start it out?
Yeah, I'll start us out here. So what we had is 1 team from the AL, 1 team from the NL we like. I'm going to say 2 teams from the AL I like, and then my NL team. I love the Seattle Mariners. Seattle Mariners are second half of the season made strides, trade midseason for Luis Castillo. Eugenio Suarez is tied with Judge right now in the second half. I think since August 1st, most homers. So he's swinging the bat very well right now. You got Rookie of the Year, NL Rookie of the Year, Julio Rodriguez leading you off. First to hit 25 homers, 25 stolen bases this year. I really like their lineup, though. Jesse Winker comes in every now and then, has a good game. Cal Raleigh, Mitch Haniger, those guys are just solid pieces. And I really think it all comes down to their starting pitching. And getting Luis Castillo was big for them. So Luis and Robbie Ray, you know, great 1-2. I think they can make some noise in the wild card spot. And I'm going to go to my second team in the AL, which is the team that is getting hot right now. I know they took an 11-0 loss last night to the Tampa Bay Rays, but the Toronto Blue Jays have been absolutely scorching this last month. George Springer, Vlad Guerrero leading the charge. But one name that we got to mention is Bo Bichette, man. Bo Bichette is killing it right now. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it was this month or in 1 month's time. He is leading the league with 10 two-hit games. 10 two-hit games this month, I'm pretty sure. He's upped his average to 285. He's cutting down on the errors. He was at 16 errors almost 2 months ago. He's still at 16 errors. He's cutting down on the errors, which is very well. For the Blue Jays, the offense is going to be there. It's going to come down to the pitching. Gosman had a very rough outing last night, so we'll see what comes down to it. They will make the postseason, so they might face the Yankees in the first round. I think they could give the Yankees a little bit of trouble, but Seattle will be my main team in the AL. And onto the NL side, I think the Atlanta Braves can go back to the World Series this year. I think they are going to overtake the Mets 1 game back. Mets are very good, but I think it's a big key to overtake the Mets. If they do, they get that home field advantage for the playoffs and they don't get stuck in the wild card and have to play on the road. I think that's big. Ronald Acuna is looking like himself again. Matt Olson, Ozzie Albies coming back maybe. The pitching has been there. Max Fried's looked very solid. So I like the Braves in the NL.
Well, I'm going to piggyback off Dallas's point. My NL team also is the Atlanta Braves. You know, I think there's a lot of conversation in the MLB, but the biggest thing is if I put somebody out on the mound that night in the playoffs, who's going to win those games? And I think they have just such a massive bullpen and starting rotation. Spencer Strider, Charlie Morton, Kyle Wright, Max Fried, and Ian Anderson have all clocked over 111 innings this season of pitching. That's huge for them. They have 5 guys that they can really dig into you with. But maybe even using some of those guys in different roles. We've always talked about the super arm coming out of the bullpen. It's been a huge topic. I think there's conversations that Spencer Strider could be a super arm, a guy who can come and eat up 3 or 4 innings, currently throwing a 2.7 earned run average, which is great. He looks great. Very poised for me to, win that MLB rookie of the year for the NL. I think he's been great. He's been awesome. 192 strikeouts, as well as only giving up 1.01 walks per inning pitched. It's been great. He's been just a great pitcher this season. And, I look for them to make the stride, but also, they have the batting order to, out bat teams. We always talk about the fact that, runs are the most important thing in baseball. From batting order position 1 through 9, minus that pitcher, because, we have to remember the pitchers do hit sometimes. It's a really good team. And, I'm really looking for them to make that next step. I think people always talk about the old Freddie Freeman's gone. This team is still really good. And this team has a lot of young pieces who are very versatile and can play lots of games down the stretch. So, Atlanta looks really good, but to back up another young team, the Cleveland Guardians have just been nothing short of amazing this season. We didn't think they were going to be a team that, was going to just jump off the paper. But, they've been really, really, really good. Pitching, I will say, has been a struggle. They've had some very big injuries over the past couple weeks. They've lost it. They've gone down to basically a 4-man bullpen, right, or 4-man starting rotation. But, I hope they can get Zach Plesac back. He's currently on the IL for 15 days. Cal Quantrill, Tristan McKenzie, Shane Bieber, they have the most interesting part is they have such a young bullpen, or they have such a young starting set of starters, but, it's very hunkered down by the Shane Bieber. But then when you get to the offense has been the most impressing thing for me. This team has just been so disciplined at the plate. They have guys who are just looking great. The ones I really like to touch on, Stephen Kwan, he's been fantastic this year, been amazing, been great, had a lot of very good plate discipline. But Miles Straw, you have for me, it's a young team that can go, I think, can go out and win games on the road. They're a very analytics driven team. So, looking at those metric stats, they're good. They cover all the bases for me. I will say my biggest worry is, those White Sox are hot, baby. They're tearing it up. They're getting ground back. So, I really want to see the Guardians step up and, push themselves and separate themselves from the rest of the pack, because I think they're one of the teams that I could see making it all the way through. I don't think the AL is as stacked as we believe it is. Everyone says, oh, the Yankees can hit the cover off the ball. Aaron Judge can hit the cover off the ball. If you're telling me I have to pitch against one guy, or I have to pitch against 8 guys who can get a hit, I don't want to pitch against the 8 guys who can get a hit. I want to pitch against the one guy who's going to get a hit. So for me, really big into Cleveland. Adam, would you like to finish it out?
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback on you guys with Atlanta. I'm gonna back with them. I'm not even gonna focus. You guys have stolen every single word that I need to say, but I'm actually interested in the Baltimore Orioles. It's the only place actually that I've ever been. It's the only MLB stadium that I've ever gone to, and it was the suite. Weirdly enough, it was one of the suites up there. So yeah, my parents are pretty decent Orioles fans. I'm always gonna just back them. I think they're pretty solid all around. I'm not sure they're definitely not going to do much when they get there, but I think you got to keep an eye on the Orioles. I really think they could get in that wild card spot.
I like to agree. I think the Orioles, have built this very good dynasty building piece. I'm a very big analytics guy. You look at their analytics for the year; they've been fantastic all year. They traded Trey Mancini and traded Jorge Lopez at the deadline and have looked 10 times better without them. They really made that step I want to say around the deadline, they were 12 and a half games out. And they've now made this resurgence, 4.5 games out. I will say the tough part is that AL East is so full of good teams. You have Toronto, like Dallas said. You have Tampa Bay, who can get hot at any time of the week. And the Orioles, it's a tough division at the end of the day. But I really like Adley Rutschman. I really like what they're doing. I think I'll say, I'm ready for them to maybe make the step to be a playoff team next year. Looking at the development system, you've brought up Gunnar Henderson. I'm really looking for Grayson Rodriguez to come up. I really hope he does. Maybe if they get close to the playoffs, maybe bring him in and let him be a reliever. You need the arms, their bullpen, their starting rotation and bullpen have been kind of beat up on this year. I feel like, not sporting the best ERAs, they fall between, I would say, the high threes and the low fives. So, you really hope that's a little bit better because, if they make it, they are going to play tough teams. But, they're a really good team, really young team, for all my hope, I hope they make it. But mathematically and, if I'm truly picking a team, I probably am not going to give the Orioles the complete shot at, making the playoffs. But, if they made that run, I wouldn't be surprised. Alrighty. And then we kind of want to do something interesting this week. We've kind of talked about everything else. What are the most interesting sporting matchups of the week, guys? What sporting event is just standing out at you that you're like, man, I can't wait to watch that and see what happens.
I'll go first here. Really nothing on the college football side was very intriguing to me this week. Not many ranked matchups this week. I think the two were Miami and Texas A&M and BYU Oregon, which I don't even know why Oregon is ranked in the top 25. I still don't think they should be ranked. So I'll head over to the NFL side this week. Obviously, want to watch the Bengals game, but the main game that intrigues me will be Vikings Eagles on Monday night. I think that'll be a massive game. I want to see this Eagles defense play a bit better than they did last week, and I want to see what they do to combat Justin Jefferson, and I want to see what Minnesota's defense can do to stop the Eagles' ground game. So I'm interested to watch the two defenses more than I am the offensive side of the football in that game.
It's going to be a great game. I agree with Dallas. That's definitely going to be on my Monday night watch list. Hopefully I have nothing going on so I can just sit down and fully, immerse myself into that game. Adam, would you like to take your sporting matchup of the week? Could be any sport.
Yeah, because you said any sport, I'm going to take it to a place that you might not expect in the English Premier League for football, I guess, or we would say soccer, but football with Wolves versus Man City. I'm a Man City fan. Hate me all you want. I know we have a bunch of money and we buy the best players from every single team in the world, but hey, you know what? It happens. I don't know if you guys know much about European football or anything like that.
I'm a huge soccer fan, so I watch the Premier League pretty religiously. You're not going to like what I'm about to say. I may be a Liverpool fan. That might be a possibility. I won't say I've watched as much this year, but hey, I'm still rooting for the boys. We need some wins.
Yeah. Erling Haaland. Just Erling Haaland. I want to see if he scores again. I mean, if you don't know anything about European football, he is an absolute monster. And honestly, any game that you watch, it's almost like the LeBron James. You have to watch it. He's box office. Like he's just going to score something. He's just going to bully. He's going to run through everybody. You can't stop him. He's just bigger than everyone. He's stronger. He's fast. He has the football intelligence. He knows what he's doing. Pep is integrating him perfectly into the system. And, Wolves are a very defensive team. They're hard to score on. So, and even though they lost Connor Cody, their captain, they still, they don't score many goals, but they're hard to score on. So I'm really interested to see what City can do against a unit that is probably the best defensive team that we faced so far on all comps. I think Wolves are going to be the best defensively. So it's a big test. We can't really drop any more points, or somehow Arsenal are going to continue to stay above us somehow.
Yeah.
Even though I am kind of mad we lost Jesus. He's my favorite player. And then Sterling was my second favorite player. So, but I think, we still have Kevin De Bruyne, we still have Rodri, Cancelo, Stones, Ederson. I mean, it's ridiculous, the team that we have, but yeah, I think it's going to be a big matchup for the Premier League. I'm kind of sad that so many games were postponed. I really, really want to see Liverpool Chelsea with Graham
I do
Potter
too, but I'm kind of glad, give our guys some rest. Let's get a little break for the weekend.
You need to give Trent a break. It's been a rough couple of weeks for Trent on the right back position, but
just a bit. But we'll get through it. We'll get through it. So you talked about soccer. I was going to cover soccer, but the game you covered basically took mine. But MLB, what the category we just went through, two huge matchups in my mind right now. Currently, Baltimore play Toronto, so those playoff spots are on the line every single day. So tonight they play at 7:07 on Apple TV, and then another huge game, Cleveland versus the Twins. Two teams that are very, very, very close to each other right now in the league. You want to see I want to see those Guardians play, and I want to see them play very proficiently. I want them to make that next step. But really good MLB games. If you're not an MLB fan, even now is the time to, I would say, start watching, because once you get to the playoffs, you'll know these guys. You've seen these guys play. It's a great precursor for the MLB playoffs. So now that we're wrapped up with that, we're going to go through those hot takes from last week. We had some pretty good ones. I will say I'm very proud of myself. I have gone 2-0. I know I did not recap from the week before. I'm so sorry about that. I didn't even think about it. But my first week take was that Ohio State holds Notre Dame to 3 touchdowns, and that was true. Dallas was that Oregon beats Georgia and Utah hangs with Alabama. Unfortunately, he did not get that right. And Austin said J.J. McCarthy will end up top 3 in Heisman voting. I cannot say Heisman voting has started yet, so has not happened. But last week, we had some hot takes. I had the Giants beating the Titans and the Seahawks beating the Broncos. Geno Smith, let him cook. Dallas had a great take, and one that everyone was shocked by, which was Appalachian State beating Texas A&M. But then he also has Cincy making the Super Bowl in a later pick. And Austin had South Carolina beating Arkansas. Unfortunately, South Carolina took the loss. Rishi had Michigan covering the spread against Hawaii, which was 52.5. Unfortunately, Michigan only hit 40. And then, Adam, you had the Browns beating the Panthers by 20. Unfortunately, that game was a lot closer than we did expect.
I was so close.
What do we have for hot takes this week, guys? Rishi sent his in. I would love to show Rishi's, but it is betting. And I could share my screen real quick. Let me do that. Let me share my screen.
All right. While you do that, I'm going to hop in my hot take. And I'm going to come back with Alex on the Seattle Seahawks. I very much like what I saw on Monday night. Nothing on the college football slate really spelled upset to me. So I started looking at the NFL. What can I do to hot take? I'm going to take Seattle on the road over San Francisco this week.
All right. Seattle on the road versus San Francisco, a game that San Francisco almost looked a lot better, but just came up a little bit short, unfortunately. So Dallas has the Seahawks and Pete Carroll, baby. Are they going to make that step and maybe scare some people and think, is this NFC West not not as easy as we thought. Are the Seahawks looking to be better? Adam, what do you have?
All right, so I'm going with an NFL take this week. Brees Hall, 3 touchdowns, hat trick this week, and Jets win. Jets grab their first win of the season. I know it sounds like a long shot, and it might just be because I just picked up Brees Hall for my fantasy team, but I don't have any rhyme or reason to believe that this is going to happen. It's in my heart. I just think, Joe Flacco, he's got to get a win sometime. And to be fair, the recent history favors the Jets. Last time Jets played Cleveland, they won 23-16. So history is favoring the Jets. So I think it's possible. I don't think it's out of the question.
I do have some analytics to back up what you are saying. Last week in coverage, the Jets cornerbacks were the only 2 duo cornerbacks to get a highest grading. That would be in Jalen Guidry and as well as Sauce Gardner, both. And Guidry actually only had 1% of passes targeted to him. So, very good game from them against a team that we said carved them up. So, maybe that defense is legit. We'll see this week. All right. So Brees Hall, 3 touchdowns and the Jets win. We're actually going to show Rishi's. I would like to preface this that we do not support gambling here on the show, and we do not say that this is what you should do for gambling this week, but this is what Rishi does have. Rishi has the money line on the Detroit Lions, the money line on the Pittsburgh Steelers, the alternate spread on the Texans game. I think that game's a little bit of a sleeper, guys, as well as the Bengals on the alternate spread and the Buffalo Bills on the alternate spread at plus 3,014. So if any of you are eligible and able to gamble, which you should be when you're gambling, no illegal gambling, maybe follow some Rishi bets here. I don't know Rishi's track record on betting, but we'll toss Rishi down on there and say, if that spread hits, I need to see a screenshot of it hitting, because I'm not gonna be able to keep track of all that. My hot take this week. Wow, I'm struggling, guys. I'm really struggling. I don't know who to pick here. I want to keep my perfect streak, but unfortunately, I believe it will come to an end. But I'm gonna parlay it again. Back-to-back week parlays. I'm gonna go with the New Orleans Saints beat the Buccaneers, who had a great week 1 game. And then I'm gonna parlay that with another game. It's tough. Who do we take?
I guess hot take Colts beat Jacksonville. You can have that one. That's been tough.
I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions beat the Washington Commanders. I'm not confident, guys. Last week, I felt very confident in my takes. But, this week, there's a lot of tough games. I think a lot of these teams are going to want to make the bounce back. So hopefully, that they all pan out. We all hit them. It would be the first time ever that everybody gets a hot take right in the week. So, we would love to see that. But we didn't have too many chats today. The only one was that Demetric Crenshaw is going to tear up against this Kentucky defense this weekend. I have no clue who Demetric Crenshaw is. Rishi might have some insider analysis on that. But, gentlemen, it has been a great show. So glad to have it. And we will be back with you guys next week. This is the SMC Around the Board show. Have a great rest of your weekend, guys.